Well, hello everyone. We've been asked to read a book for the Greater Clark County Kids School. I know this year has been a little different than any in the past, but we thought we'd take this opportunity, Puddin and I, to read a book to you that was there's only one book made in this edition, and it's Puddin's Best Day. And this was written by a co-worker here at the city, Amy Huffman, written and illustrated. And it's all about Puddin, and so you'll know the background. Puddin came from the Jeffersonville Animal Shelter. I adopted her about 7 years ago. And I guess that's referred to as a rescue dog. And in all reality, Puddin rescued me. So we had a little fun putting this book together. It's a few years in the making, but it's a lot of fun. And Puddin's getting into a lot of different adventures, and she's even become a superhero. So I hope you'll enjoy listening to it as much as I have enjoyed living with her. And here she is, my sidekick for life. And she'd love to share this book with you. Puddin's Best Day. She's far too busy these days to give it much thought, but part of her feels like she hit the jackpot, because even though all the memories aren't clear, she knows life was different before she got here. There are hazy pictures of cats and kids from before, when it wasn't even safe to walk across the floor. There was no place to lay and close her eyes. She couldn't find peace, and dreams would never materialize. But then one day, right out of the blue, her whole life changed and everything was new. She had just walked in, fresh from a bath, and they said she had nearly missed him by just a minute and a half. She saw him as soon as he saw her, and she really was glad she didn't have dirt in her fur. From her head to her tail, he sized her up, and immediately she knew she would be his new pup. Without any delays, he said he'd take her that day, and those were the words she didn't think anyone would ever say. She was happy to walk right at his side, all the way to his car, where he gave her a ride. Off to a new place, a new home, a new life indeed. They were perfect for each other, everyone agreed. Although she wasn't sure where this journey would lead, she could sense right away she had finally been freed. Looking around her new yard and her new home, the first thing she noticed was all the room she could roam. Best of all, she saw she wouldn't have to share, because a quick sniff around proved no cats even lived there. Wherever she was, she knew she wanted to stay, because finally, at last, she had a safe place to lay. With a sigh and a plop, she settled in for a nap, and he didn't seem to mind when she put her head on his lap. So many new things all in one day. She thought of them all as she drifted away. Into a deep, deep sleep, she finally let herself go, and her mind filled with adventures only dreams could show. She was sailing a pirate ship. She turned the big round wheel to the left and then to the right, until the giant wooden ship sailed so fast it almost took flight. Up and down over the waves in the sea, she guided the vessel where it needed to be. Two pieces of land separated by a small watery gap. It looked exactly the same as it did here on the map. This is it, she thought with pleasure. This is where I will find the hidden treasure. She eased the ship to the shore with the help of the tide. Then she held on her hat and jumped over the side. She swam, then she ran straight to the spot where she dug and she dug until she got what she got. It was all of the things that she loved the best. It was a treasure indeed inside the chest. Biscuits, bones, and even a stick. She had no idea what she would pick. She was at the beach, so this was the place she could finally see where her dad always went, where she wanted to be. He called it a beach, all covered in sand, and it sat between the water and a big piece of land. Plenty of people were spread all around, none of them noticing what covered the ground. Yes, it was soft, but it felt funny too, tickling her toes when she tried to walk through. She bent down her head and immediately froze, because just one little sniff covered her nose. Shaking her head, she decided right then upon a great plan that caused her to grin. She needed to make her way across this grit, straight into the water, warmed and sunlit. In the water, she could put her worries aside, and people would stop to watch her glide. Over and under the waves she would go, sliding through the sea until she got to Mexico. She was fighting a shark. She started to wonder if she'd made a mistake, because the ocean turned out to be much different than a lake. Everyone knows there are plenty of fish in the sea, but she couldn't believe how big these fish could be. Some of them were pretty in colors so bright, but then she saw one that wasn't quite right. It was long and wide with skin of gray. The way it swam by seemed like it wanted to play. But then it circled around her and passed by again, and she saw it was huge and had a really big fin. When it opened its mouth, it wasn't to smile. It had 2 rows of teeth you could see for a mile. Her first instinct was to swim away quick, but on second thought, she wasn't scared, not even a lick. She remembered what she found inside the old treasure chest, a shiny sword that would help her with this test. So quickly she drew the sword from her side, then pushed herself from under the tide. She tilted back, sword in the air, swooshing and slicing with not a moment to spare. The enormous gray fish thrashed its tail, and when she jabbed its big side, she heard a loud wail. Although her blade had barely touched skin, the big old fish retreated just then. Puddin' was glad to see the beast swim away, because she had a party to go to today. Easing back into the calm, salty water, she thought to herself, it can't be much farther. She was in Mexico. She was south of the border in pretty quick order. Her decision to swim there was right after all, because by land she would have had to scale a very tall wall. Soon enough, she was in a very strange place, and she couldn't find one familiar face. I may as well make the most of it, she thought, and start having fun now before it's too hot. There's a party somewhere, she said to herself, although the invitation called it something she couldn't pronounce. A fiesta, she thought it was what it was called, and the sound of it left her very enthralled. From every corner came sounds and smells, happy music, bright colors, and meat-filling shells. Ladies in bright dresses and men in wide hats, and then there were kids swinging their bats. They weren't hitting balls, she was surprised to see. They were using the sticks to swing at a tree. At first she was confused by what she saw, but soon the confusion turned into awe. There on a branch up high in the tree was the bright colored shape they swung at in glee. They swung and swung, landing some blows, and at first, when it burst, everyone froze. Out came tumbling candy and toys, clattering to the ground with a whole lot of noise. As all of those kids dove for the sweets, she quickly snuck in and grabbed her own treats. Everything here was strange to her, and the whole trip had gone by in a blur. She liked it here and wouldn't mind a longer stay, but she knew it was time to get on her way. She was pulling a heist. She knew it was wrong to commit any kind of crime, especially one without any reason or rhyme. But by now she was delirious from the smell of the snacks. They had been waffling from the back of the barbecue shack. Smoky and meaty, maybe a bit saucy too. Her tummy told her there must be something she could do. If she could just manage to cover her face, she knew she could sneak right into that place. So her bandana she fixed just below her eyes, then giggled to herself, what a brilliant disguise. She started out slow by crouching down low, sneaking and sneaking until there wasn't much further to go. Finally she leaped and she stretched, and at last it was the meat that she'd fetched. Her bandana now pulled over her chest like a bib. She gobbled it up down to the very last rib. With a dab of sauce still on her face, she looked until she found a quiet place. She rode onto her back with all her paws in the air. Then she closed her eyes and fell asleep right there. She was in a parade. Of all the walks she'd ever been on, never before did she twirl a baton. Nor did she ever before have a chance to wear a hat with a feather that waved in the air. But nothing about this walk was the same, because all of these people were calling her name. They were cheering and waving as she came down the street, and she thought to herself, it was all pretty neat. One paw in front of the other she pranced, leading some others who broke out and danced. Behind her in a line, people waved from fancy floats. Some beat drums and others tooted trumpet notes. But it wasn't them the crowd had come to see. She told herself, I know they're here because they want to see me. I'm a celebrity. I'm a star. This is the best walk I've ever been on by far. She was a superhero. On all the days before today, the bright blue sky seemed far too far away. A place for birds and planes to explore, but not a place for putting more. Today, however, she didn't feel any fear. Finally, she was ready to explore the stratosphere. She was sure she had seen it in the movies before, how normal people suddenly managed to soar. So she found a long piece of fabric to drape and created for herself a shiny red cape. Tied tight around her neck, then flowing down her back, this magical accessory would put her on track. Her powers right now might register 0, but soon enough, she would be a superhero. She started with a run, then a jump and a skip, and finally she lifted off. She let out a yip. Higher and higher she went into the air. How glorious to feel the breeze in her hair. Faster and faster she roared through the sky, twisting and turning so the world she could spy. Under the sun, then straight through a cloud, this was a mission that made her quite proud. She was a firefighter. At the sound of the bell, they let out a yell. Then they slid down the pole and they were ready to row. Her footwork perfectly timed. She raced, then she climbed. Way up high was where she snuck to the spot on the top of the back of the truck. Settling into her seat and throwing on her hat, she hoped they weren't being called to rescue a cat. Sometimes they went for quite a few days without getting to fight a super big blaze. So as the truck sped along the city street maze, She watched and she waited for the smoke in her gaze. She liked it when they arrived on the site and there was some kind of blaze they needed to fight. Only then she could leap from her high spot and race toward the fire the way she was taught. Her job was the most important of any task. Everyone would say so, no matter who you asked, because once they unlocked all of their hose, it was her job to unroll it with the tip of her nose. As they rode down the road, she gave out a yelp because she knew they couldn't succeed without all of her help. She was a crime fighter. Riding with the police wasn't the same, but she liked the brass badge that spelled out her name. Some things were fun without any doubt, like riding in the car with the speedometer maxed out. She also didn't mind the outfits worn by the crew because she actually looked good in really dark blue. She liked stopping for donuts, which was a regular treat. So it was a good thing for her the cops all liked to eat. Sometimes with sprinkles, sometimes with glaze, but an apple fritter meant it was an especially good day. There were some things about the job that were really a little bit scary, and from day to day the dangers really could vary. She wasn't interested in carrying a gun, so it was a good thing that she could run. Whenever there was a bad guy who gave them a chase, it was her responsibility to sniff out their place. Sometimes they gave up and other times they hid, but she always caught them, no matter what they did. If it wasn't for her, they'd probably all get away, but with her on the scene, Jeff was a safe place to stay. She had to go to work at least 5 days a week. She still had to work. There were some responsibilities she just couldn't shirk. It turns out her dad was a pretty big deal, and sometimes their days turned into quite an ordeal. It wasn't very easy being in charge of an entire city that was this large, but she was really proud of the job that she did, and she was especially proud of her smart, witty dad. Meetings and outings and people to see, trying to get everyone to always agree. Sometimes she needed a place where she could rest, especially on days her patience was put to the test. So up into her chair she would climb, just to sit quietly and spend time looking out over the little universe. She could watch all the cars and the people traverse. Up and down the city streets, they came and went in snow and heat. They came in cars and on their feet. And some of the things she saw were pretty neat. She could see everything from there, and the peace gave her time to prepare for whatever the next day or the next phone call might bring, because you always had to be ready for the next big thing. She was in the major leagues. As the car eased along, she thought she could see. Up ahead was one of her favorite places to be. She could feel a rumble starting down low, and it rose into her throat as it continued to grow. She shifted her weight from paw to paw, then spun in a circle at the sight of what she saw. The rumble finally burst into a bark. Now she was sure they were in a ballpark. This park wasn't the one she'd been in before. This one was bigger than she could ever hope for. Her home field was one for kids and teenagers, but this field was one for the majors. Someone must have heard the way she could run the bases. Her speed surprised everyone. She could see it on their faces. She wasn't much for throwing, she had to admit, but she could certainly catch and didn't even need a mitt. She had been called to the big leagues at last, and the field before her was green and vast. And as she throttled onto the field to make her debut, the thunderous applause began to ensue. She was happy. She is beautiful, outstanding, stupendous, outrageous, amazing. She is smart, fast, divine. She knows because her dad tells her all the time. Thanks to him, there wasn't anything she couldn't do. And thanks to her, he had a friend who would always be true. Without him, she didn't know where she would be, but she would always be grateful because he set her free. They had each other, that was the important thing, and she knew that together they could make it through anything. That's a very special book about a very special dog. Puddin is more than my pet. She's my best friend, and I don't know what I'd do without her. I know this is a tough Christmas for a lot of people. I hope you take some joy in this book, and I really hope you'll check out the Jeffersonville Animal Shelter. That was where I found Puddin. My life wouldn't be the same without her. So kids, as you take this break off of school, just remember, come springtime, we're going to hopefully get back to normal, and good things will come. Eat your food, listen to your parents, listen to your teachers. Good things will happen. Santa Claus is watching. Merry Christmas, everybody.